What's up guys, YST here and welcome back to another Raid Shadow Legends video. And today, we are live on the test server to showcase 4 new champions, including the new fusion in Oella, who will be starting this Thursday on February 9th, coming in the form of a traditional fusion, meaning you will need the 16 rares to fuse into the epics and then into the legendary of Oella. So it does look like there is going to be 16 of the same rare, 4 of the same epic to fuse that champion. So what I'm going to be doing is breaking down all of the skill sets. I'll show you some gameplay of these champions so you can see the animations and run through it briefly. And if you guys do want to hit a subscribe button, I will be showcasing all of these champions this week in more detail. But I know that some of you guys enjoy just watching the animations and seeing what they're capable of. So I'll be doing that in today's video. We've also got the partner champion in Ultan Of The Shell, who partners up with Oella as a skill set. If we just have a little look here. So, where is he? So here's Oella and here is Ultan Of The Shell. And he looks pretty cool and they're both from the Sylvan Watches, which is a plus. Meaning that taking down the faction wars with their dual abilities will actually be very, very helpful. But yeah, we'll break down those kits properly soon. Let's just start off with the rare in Shadowbow Tuhak. I actually managed to get a 4-star soul on the test server, which was pretty cool. So might be able to amplify some of his damage in the showcases. And aesthetic wise, he's got his camouflage on, he's got his bow and arrow, he's from the Sylvan Watchers, and I actually think he's a solid rare. Like, when you talk about rares in this game, they tend to not put game-changing ones nowadays. It's been a long time, right? But I feel like for faction wars in particular, and even some other progression stuff, I think he's actually pretty decent. So on the E1 with the Shadowbow, attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of applying the small version of the decreased attack debuff for 1 turn, and he's based on defense. Now, being based off defense is really cool because it adds to his sustainability by putting the defense-based stats on, whilst that's kind of what he's scaling off as well to deal damage. So I'm always a fan of defense champions. So pretty decent, I guess, but I kind of do wish it was the 50% decreased attack. On the Swift Warband, attacks all enemies and places a 15% increased speed buff on all allies for 2 turns, allowing you to get more speedy, and he's also attacking in the same skill set. It is very similar to Diabolist, who was a rare champion. I'll just quickly find a few, just for a little bit of a comparison. So, Demon Spawn, head down to the rares, Diabolist, or Diabolist, some of you guys kill me in the comments. And she's basically got the same skill set, but a 30% increased speed buff. And she's a farmable rare. So if you are looking for this kind of skills, there is one available to get from like farming 12 free from the Brutal campaign in this champion. And her base speed is definitely a lot better than Shadowbow Tuhak. But a great option for faction wars, right? Just find him again. Where are you, buddy? Where are you? There we are. So yeah, 15% and attacks all enemies. But I am anxious to see how well that the damage performs, because he might be hitting really hard, right? On the diversion, places a veil buff on all allies except this champion for 1 turn, which allows you to have some damage mitigation of 7.5%, and also hides all of your allies from being a target, which is actually very, very strong. Now, one takeaway is it is on a 1 turn cooldown, so you might want to bring in a buff extender in order to see the true value of this. But it's not as impactful as a perfect veil that you may see from like a Duchess, right? But can still have its uses in early game progression. We'll also place a shield buff on all allies for 2 turns equal to 20% of this champion's max HP. And his base stats here is at 15,000, which is not too bad at all. So when it's based off this champion's max HP, allows you to have the more even coverage, right, than their max HP. Because sometimes you might have like an attack-based champion, they've got no HP on, and you don't see a true value. So, yeah, a 20% shield is actually not too bad at all. And that applies for 2 turns, so the duration is a little bit longer on that one. Granted, it is on a 4-turn cooldown, but as a kit overall, decreased attack, we've got increased speed, we're attacking enemies, we're placing veils and shields. It actually turns out to be a great support defense-based champion, right? Now, heading into the camo cover on the passive, decreases the damage received from skills by all allies under Veil or Perfect Veil buffs by 5%. Now, as we've seen in the A3, he does bring a Veil of his own, but it's not on a longer duration. So pairing him with somebody like a Duchess, hypothetically, is actually not too much of a bad idea, right? Especially in like Doom Tower battles. I'm thinking of some other Veil champions, like maybe a Roxanne or whoever that may be. and you'll actually see a more 5% damage reduction here, which is actually pretty substantial, right? Because you're already getting damage mitigation from these buffs, and it's just furthering on that. So yeah, I like the passive. It's a little bit niche, I guess. You've got to be pairing it with the right abilities, but it's always nice to have it in the kit as well, so you at least have some value most of the time. We did put the Phantom Touch Blessing on, but that's we'll save that discussion for another day. But overall, do I think he's an amazing champion? He's not going to break the game, right? But when you talk about secret rooms, when you talk about the new Faction Wars scripts that should be coming out potentially in like 3 months or so, if it's scheduled in the way that I'm thinking, I think he's a nice addition, right? And at the cost of rare books, he's definitely one to look out for, maybe if you're trying to get that 3 stars in the future. And we will be getting a bunch of them, right? And we'll speak about if Oella is worth going for in a second. So the next champion is actually going to be the epic that will be needed in order to fuse Oella in Marukha. And she reminds me a little bit of Sandlash Survivor with the weapon choice. I love it. So basically on her skill, she's actually based off defense as well, which is nice. So on the Tarfield Affliction, attacks one enemy 2 times, and each hit has a 30% chance of applying a 30% decreased speed debuff for 2 turns. Now, decreased speed A1 I'm always a huge fan of, and we've actually seen this in the fusion in Oella, but hers is at 100% chance, which is a lot more substantial, right? But 2 times, each time having a chance to place it, not a bad chance to land that whatsoever. On the Badlands Witchery, it removes all debuffs from a target ally, then heals them by 50% of their max HP. Now, we spoke about this with the other champion, with Turlik, and he's based off his max HP, right? But this target ally thing and healing of their max HP on a 3-turn cooldown, it's decent, right? Talk about like the Nether Spider, for instance, cleansing off all the poisons, or maybe for spider tanking in the dungeons or faction wars. It can definitely have its use, but in an ideal world, we'd love this to be on all of our allies so we can get a full out cleanse, right? But I don't know. You guys can let me know what you think about this. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of this ability here, but it can still have its uses. On the Return from the Slime, we'll place a Revive on Death buff on all allies for 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown. And ways that I like to use this is Doom Tower waves, or in Bommel compositions, in like the Revive on Death strategies, paired with maybe a Mother Cybele is a good option. And yeah, there's some potential for this, but on a 4-turn cooldown, might not come around as much as you want to, right? But I guess it can have its uses, especially in like the Iron Twins Fortress as well, or the Sand Devil's Necropolis. But yeah, it's decent, alright? Revive on Death, we've seen this before, but it is available as part of this fusion if you don't want to go for the end result in Oella. On Springy with the passive, each time this champion is hit, increases their defense by 2.5% and will stack up to 20% and resets each round. Now, what does this mean? It means that in longer fights or boss battles, you're going to see a true value of a 20% of stacking of the debuff, or the defense stats, sorry. And that's actually pretty nice, as she is based off defense, just furthering to her sustainability and also a damage of her A1 skill. But if you have a look here, it's like she's kind of like a tank, right? So maybe tank her up with high resistance. Does she have any base resistance here? She has got a base of 45, man. She has got a base of 45, and that's relatively high. And one takeaway from this. So what I've kind of done is, well, I'll showcase the champion in a future video, but we've got an untouchable set to kind of go through, get hit, tank up the hits, right? Soak it up, absorb damage, increase the defense, place a Revive on Death, follow through with a cleanse and a heal, and place the decreased speed. But yeah, she's decent, right? She does very remind me of Sandlash Survivor, because Sandlash Survivor, if we have a look here, very different champions, by the way, but just for like argument's sake, where is she? Sandlashed. Spirit Affinity. You guys are probably screaming at me like, yo, she's right there, YST. Did I put a blessing on her? I must have. And oh, there she is. So aesthetic-wise, very similar. She does attack one enemy 2 times, similar to Marukha, but it's a chance to place a provoke instead of a decreased speed. She increases the duration, whereas the other champion does a single target cleanse. She places ally protection and block damage, and the other champion does Revive on Death with the increasing of defense. So yeah, both kind of like support, tank, beastly champions, I guess. I like her. She's decent, right? She's just not game-breaking, in my personal opinion anyway. So, alright, let's just head into the juicy stuff now. So, Ultan of the Shell. Do we speak about him first? No, I think we should speak about Oella first. So Oella looks really cool in game. I like her. I wish she was flying a little bit like a duchess, like an actual fairy. But I like the aesthetics, very unique, and they always do an amazing job with the artwork on these champions. Now, with the Flutter Fluster, attacks one enemy, has a 100% chance once booked of applying a 30% decreased speed debuff for 2 turns, and this debuff cannot be resisted if Ultan of the Shell is on the same team. Now, with the debuff not being resisted means that you do not need accuracy stats in order to place this skill set as long as Ultan is on the same team. So when you're going into the Iron Twins Fortress and the thresholds that you need is like above 500, like a champion like Oella is going to be game changing, right? Especially when you're trying to speed tune those things. So I wish it was an AoE in some format, but on the other hand, 100% is very, very viable. You don't get much better than that. One also thing to pick up on is, if you do get a weak hit, there is still that chance to not place that debuff. So it's not guaranteed, it just cannot be resisted, okay? So on this next ability here, with the Hand of Spring, heals all allies by 30% of their max HP. I do wish it was based on this champion's max HP once again. And increases the duration of all ally buffs by 1 turn, very similar to Silent Survivor, Godseeker Inari, Anchorites, you name it. Has a very similar skill set. Now, what I wanted to kind of compare a little bit to is that Godseeker Inari, because I feel like the A2 is very similar in so many ways. Where is she? Godseeker. Now, if you have a look here, attacks all enemies and heals all allies by 15% of their max HP, so it's half of the value of Oella, but then decreases the duration of all ally buffs, and then increases the duration of all buffs. So with someone like a Godseeker, right? She's hitting in the same skill set, meaning in places like the Hydra boss, you're actually getting War Master damage. Whereas with Oella, there's no hits in her skill set. And that's kind of one big takeaway I get from this. But it's not a bad ability whatsoever. So on the A3 with the Morphosis, fills the turn meters of all allies by 30% and places a 50% increased resistance buff on all allies for 2 turns. Now, increased resistance allows you to have less resistance stats, or you can have the same and just increase it, allowing you to have less of a chance to get debuffed in places like the Arena, like the Hydra boss, like the Iron Twins Fortress, and definitely has its uses, okay? I'm not arguing that. The turn meter fill is very on par with an Arbiter, right? 30%, matching that on the A3 skill, right? Let's have a quick look at Arbiter. Where is she? Do I have a blessing on her as well? Maybe not. So if you have a look here, on the A3, places a 50% increased attack, heals the allies, and also places the turn meter by 30%. So very similar, but you don't get an increased attack, but you get an increased resistance, which can come in play in the arena, right? So I'm a huge fan of this. I really am, because the way that the kind of mechanics are meant to work is, you fill the turn meters, right? You increase your resistance, you follow them with the A2, you then increase the duration of the increased resistance, kind of keeping it on a 3-turn duration, right? And then you lead in with the decreased speed and it cannot be resisted. And you kind of get yourself in that rhythm of having all of these things up. So it's a nice little synergy, I guess. On the Untrammeled, whenever an ally loses 15% or more their max HP from a single hit, places a 15% continuous heal buff on that ally for 1 turn, and places a continuous heal buff for 2 turns if Ultan is on the same team, and will instantly activate it as well. So the instant activation actually makes her a very strong healer, right? And I'll showcase that in the Iron Twins Fortress in a second. Res in dungeons by 75, I think is a little bit silly. I wish it was all battles, but a lower variation. Because dungeons kind of narrows it down to the Iron Twins or the Sand Devils and Necropolis. Whereas if somebody wants to use this in the Hydra boss, they're not going to have a use for this. Because that is a clan boss. It's not a dungeon, right? So, yeah, that's probably one of the downturns. Now, I'm sure that many of you guys are thinking, is this a champion that's worth going for on your accounts? Well, the simple answer is that this champion is very good, but only becomes amazing in my personal opinion once you have that partner ability that allows you to have the 2-turn duration on the continuous heal, whilst also instantly activating, making a top tier healer, and also the cannot be resisted of the decreased speed, allowing you not needing the accuracy stats. And that's kind of where I see the true value of it once you pair them together. Well, she does have an increased resistance as well alongside the turn meter fill, which is very substantial and can be used in a bunch of places. I don't know. It's a tough one because with the traditional style fusions, guys, it's like you have to farm the potion keeps. You got to farm the champions. You got to rank up the champions, make them into epics, turn the epics into the legendary, and it's very cost effective. Whereas with the fragment style fusions, I find myself being able to rank up my previous fusion champions or rank up other champions during champion training events. Whereas with these ones, you have to kind of rank up the champions for the fusion, if that makes sense, right? So I guess you just got to assess your account. Do you have the shards? It's going to be pretty cost effective with the summon rushes, etc. Also, if you get lucky, you might pull like an epic or two and it might sway your opinion and be like, ooh, maybe I might as well go for this now because I've already pulled like one of the epics and eliminated so many of the events. But for me personally, I just feel like there's too many fusions in this game, right? And it's really hard to keep up with. Even as a spender, it's very hard because we have like Nishak Verminlord, then we have like a week break, next fusion, Pythion, all of our resources gone. Then we have CVCs and guaranteed events, and then this event and this event, and then Oella comes up a week later. You know what I mean? Like for me, like I always like to have a cooling off period. And if there's a champion that's not screaming wow to me, or something that's going to drastically change my account in particular, then I tend to miss these. And that's kind of what I'm doing with this one. I might regret it in the future, but it is what it is, right? I feel like I've got more than enough resistance to do the Iron Twins. I've got more than enough resistance for the Hydra boss, and I don't really need this skill. Whereas if somebody that does need this skill, I could see a great value for the increased resistance on their accounts. But yeah, that's basically what I stand on it, but make the decision for yourselves, guys, because I don't know all of your rosters, right? So heading into Ultan Of The Shell, he is a Spirit Affinity, a legendary champion, attack based of course from the Sylvan Watchers as well. And he actually has a pretty unique kit, I'd say, because he attacks 2 times. Each hit has a 30% chance, buckle up to a 50% chance of applying a drop defense. And each hit will also ignore 50% of the target's resistance if Oella is on the same team. So once again, guys, allowing you to drop down those accuracy stats or keep them the same and allow you to place them more consistently. If the target is under an increased defense buff, each has a 100% chance of removing it, and this effect cannot be resisted. So taking off these increased defenses from those tanky champions can actually have a bit of use, right? Then on the A2 ability with the Resurging Reversal, removes all debuffs from this champion and heals this champion by 20% of their max HP for each debuff removed. Now, this actually starts to become a very strong heal, but it's based on the amount of debuffs, which I'm not sure you really want on your champions, right? But there is some situations like Spider or what's some other ones I can think of, the Never Spider or places like this, where you can actually become a pretty good tank, right? Yeah, I guess it can have its uses, but you'll see the true value for the more debuffs that you do initially have on the champion. And then places a shield buff on this champion for 2 turns. The value of this shield is equal to any surplus heal from this skill. So if you're overcapping the heals, then it's just basically going to turn into a shield, right? But once again, it's a bit of a selfish kit, right? Like everything's on himself. He's not really doing anything for your allies, but for himself, he's getting a lot of value here, right? Finally, will attack one enemy and ignore shield buffs, which is pretty strong, based on the damage multipliers, which we will test, I guess. And then damage increases by 20% for each debuff removed by this skill. Okay, so it's a weird one. It's like, do we want to start placing debuffs on ourselves with like a Gerbtuck Mossbeard, try and amplify his damage? Because if he's kind of based off removing it, and then his damage and shield increases by it, it's an interesting take. It's definitely an interesting take. On the Somnolent Sports, attacks all enemies, has a 100% chance of applying a sleep debuff. Potential use for the Sand Devils, the Acropolis, or Arena, or just CC in general. And ignores 50% of the target's resistance if Oella is on the same team. So they're kind of like the resistance meta together, I guess. It's a bit fun, right? And fills this champion's turn meter by 15% whenever a sleep debuff is placed by this skill expires, which will be a 60% in the arena, granted you get it on all of the enemies, or a 75% turn meter increase in places like the waves in dungeons or Doom Tower. And he attacks all enemies at the same time, so a pretty decent skill as long as it hits hard, right? He's an attack-based champion. I'm expecting a bit of damage here. Now, heading into the passive, has a 15% chance of decreasing the cooldown of one of this champion's skills by 1 turn every time they are healed by a continuous heal buff, and this chance increases to 30% if Oella is on the same team. And what does Oella bring, guys? She brings that continuous heal buff in a passive, instantly activates it, and then allows him to decrease the cooldown of his skill by 30% if she's on the team. This is where like the partner abilities and he comes into play so much, and I'm hoping that he does become a guaranteed champion for anybody that does kind of go for the fusion, right? Attacking all battles by 30%, looks amazing, kit sounds interesting. You guys let me know what you think about this one. So that's basically all of the champions, guys. So what I'm going to do is I'll just take you in for like a bit of a gameplay mode. So you guys can see exactly what they're capable of. And this is a little team that I'm just going to showcase. And I felt like it's probably the place to show it. With the cannot be resisted on her. If you have a little look here. She has got 150 accuracy, guys, okay? 141. And you'll see she will still place it. Well, it is the weak affinity, but there we go. Weak hit. So that's basically what I was breaking down in the kit earlier. That in places like the Iron Twins, if you're facing the force affinity, it's not like guaranteed, right? You still can get the weak hits. It's just if you do place it, it cannot be resisted. So there's the increased resistance. And you see that the cooldowns, well, there's the decreased speed, guys. But you see the cooldowns got reduced on our Ultan Of The Shell. That 30% chance. So look. Boom. Hopefully you can instantly activate again. More decreased speed going out. Nice. Increased resistance. I feel like the synergy is very nice, though. It is very nice because we're getting a bunch of continuous heals here, guys. I think this actually, it does turn out to be a great duo for the Iron Twins. I gotta be honest here. And look at this, we're hardly ever taking any damage because we're instantly activating all of those continuous heal buffs. It's interesting. It's definitely interesting. Alright, come on. More burns. Now, will this pairing be the key to making a pure resistance strategy? It could well be. It could well be. To stop the extensions and stuff with the Iron Brand debuffs. Alright, so we're going to get a lot of turn meter increase here. This is the problem. We don't have the decreased speed on at the moment. But for all of the other affinities, we won't have a problem with this. Oh, there's a turn meter increase. And the thing is, like, some compositions for the Iron Twins, we don't even need the decreased speed because you're banking on manipulating the turn meter to make sure that the boss burns more quickly. Oof. Decreased speed going out. Okay, boom. Well, other champion's dead now, so this is a bit detrimental. I think I disabled the revive on death, though, with the presets. Because I felt like the one from Skytouch was enough, so she can keep placing the decreased speed. And that's another issue, because if you enable the passive or whenever he hits, right? It can get a bit annoying. Because she takes so many turns, right? Because she does the increased resistance, then she leads into the other ability, and then she does the decreased speed. And I feel like that's too many turns. And if you get resisted on the decreased speed, on like something like the Force Affinity, you just want to make sure you're spamming the A1 as much as possible. But by doing that, you're mitigating the revive on death. We should still be able to win here. There we go. So let's see how much damage we did. So 300,000 on Ultan. That's actually pretty good for raw damage. Okay. And 1.6 million heals on Oella. It's definitely got potential, guys. And that was the stage 15. Next one, we're just going to go into the faction wars. Oh, we don't have Sylvan Watchers. Where can I show them? I'll show them in the campaign, guys, all right? Let's just go into Nightmare. We're just going to, like, stage, I don't know, stage 6 or something. And let's just get those in there. Where are they? Shadowbow Turlik. Where are you, buddy? Show your... Oh, he's camouflaged. That's why. There he is. And then we want to show Marukha. Where's Marukha? Okay, so we're just going to do a bit of gameplay. So you guys can see the ways that their abilities look and all of that good stuff. So if we just go here, this is the revive on death. Nothing crazy going on there. Very similar to a Skytouch Shaman and stuff. This is the decreased speed with the AoE. Looks pretty cool. Little bows going out. A1. Oh, wow. Okay. That was a fast animation. Interesting. Okay, here's the veil. So now everybody should be targeting him. Yes, there we go. Now we can do a little heal there. I love her animations, the way she jumps. And I think her damage multipliers might be pretty decent. I haven't gotten like crazy damage stats. That's so funny, the way she just jumps. Can you imagine her in Lord of the Rings just jumping at you from the 2 towers? There's the increased speed. Boom. Boom. 2-time hitter. And that's nice as well. It's a 2-time hitter. I forgot about that. Nice animation. With that little cleanse. She gets like a little platform underneath her feet. Boom. Nice. There's the decreased speed as well. And this is the thing, guys. Like, somebody like Marukha does have a decent decreased speed chance. Like, how different is it to Stagnite? She's Stagnite. The Stagnite says a 30% chance to place a 30% decreased speed on a 2-time hitter. And it's bookable up to an extra chance. And then Marukha was a 50. Okay, so it's definitely a lot lower value, but still a decent chance, I think. Yeah, I think she will be good for Iron Twins. She really will. Revive on death. Cleansing and heals. Yeah, she can have some niche uses, I guess. But yo, guys, that is going to be all for today's video. If you did enjoy it, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. I didn't want to go into like too much detail because I am going to be breaking down these champions in a future video. But let me know which one you're most excited to see showcased first and where you would like them to be showcased as well. Because I always like to listen to your guys' feedback and know where to focus these things when I'm recording these videos. Have an amazing rest of your day and I'll catch you guys in a video soon. Peace.